Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Burns. I'm the VP of Sales North America here at Hnoinskiy. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our webinar, Master AWS Cloud Cost Efficiency with the Well-Architected Framework. At Hnoinskiy, we help organizations squeeze the most value out of AWS by combining deep DevOps expertise with the AWS Well-Architected Framework. As an advanced AWS partner, we've reviewed dozens of environments and routinely bring a 20 to 30% cost savings while boosting performance and resilience. I'm excited today to introduce our speaker, Hnoinskiy. He's an AWS-certified DevOps engineer with more than 5 years of hands-on experience across a wide range of cloud technologies. Maksym's led well-architected reviews for global clients, uncovering hidden inefficiencies and turning them into a measurable savings and a stronger architecture. Today, he'll share practical tactics you can apply right away to trim costs and future-proof your AWS workloads. After the presentation, we will have a Q&A session, so feel free to post your questions in the chat as we go along. Let's dive in. Max, take it away.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Eric. It is a pleasure to see you all there. It means that today's topic is really important for you. I hope you enjoy today's session and really take away some really good pieces of advices and good ideas to implement on your project. So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Maksym Hnoinskiy. I'm senior DevOps engineer at Hnoinskiy. I have over 5 years experience as a DevOps engineer. I was working with AWS Cloud as well as GCP, Azure, DigitalOcean, and Hetzner. I've been conducting well-architected reviews for a while, so I have more than 20 of them already conducted. And right now I'm leading Hnoinskiy AWS Center of Excellence. So today's topic is about how we build cloud financial excellence through the well-architected framework review. So you may be thinking, what is the well-architected framework? Maybe some of you may know about that, but for you who didn't, let's imagine that you're a teenager who was going to, for his road trip with a friends and without help of parents. Yeah. So you more likely to take a backpack, just grab some money and just go for it without any plan, without any ideas, without any preparation. And more likely you would face some issues, obstacles, and you would not be prepared for that. So the next time to have your experience better, you probably would like to prepare some checklist of what things you should be prepared, aware of, and so on. So the next trip would be much better and you will have much better experience for the second one, and so on for the next year trips. And the more trips you would have, the more you extend your checklist and the more it would be complete. So you may think of well-architected framework as such a checklist, but for your cloud journey in AWS or any other cloud. So it is your checklist for success, but it is based on experience of hundreds of thousands of AWS customers, and it takes all the pros and cons of running projects in the cloud. So as well as any traveling checklist, it consists of different parts. Like you may think of clothing, money, bookings, and so on. The well-architected framework consists of 6 pillars, which covers all the aspects of running project in a cloud. So these pillars are operational excellence. The operational excellence focuses on how smooth is your daily operation. For example, how smooth is your CI/CD pipeline if you really quickly discover all the bugs, and how quick and smooth these bug fixes can be delivered through your CI/CD pipelines to the production environment without any issues and going through all the tests. The security pillar focuses on how you utilize all the cloud services that exist to secure your data, secure your infrastructure, your assets from any kind of attacks, and how you can improve your security posture of your project. So reliability pillar focuses on resiliency of your application, if it can withstand any kind of attacks by still providing good experience for end clients, and if your infrastructure and project can recover quickly from any kind of incidents. Performance efficiency focuses on like how efficiently you utilize resources, if you selected proper services, if you selected proper sizing, or maybe you have misconfigured auto-scaling. So all this stuff is covered through with performance efficiency pillar. Cost optimization pillar, it is a pillar which we will dive in more deeply today. It is about how you try to provide best how you can squeeze all the all the performance of the tools from cloud tools with the least budget. And last but not least, sustainability pillar. It is all about how to reduce your carbon footprint and environmental effect of your infrastructure according to all the best practices that we have. I want to highlight actually that well-architected framework review, it follows the industry best practices. So if you have any kind of infrastructure on premise or on any other cloud, those best practices, which you can see through all these pillars, can be applicable to whatever infrastructure you run, either on premise, AWS, or any other clouds. So it is pretty flexible to what you run. So let's focus today on cost optimization and how it can help us to make our cloud financial management excellent. So cost optimization pillar actually focuses on 4 design principles. And first one is implementation of cloud financial management. Cloud financial management is actually a big topic, which has its own pillars, which we will cover a little bit later. But the whole idea is how you manage all the processes in your companies. If you have a good communication between finance team and development teams, does anyone knows their budget? Does anyone owns their budget so they can understand how they can spend money and how they can utilize resources? So all these things covered by these design principles. The second design principles is about adopting consumption model. Everyone have different projects with different needs, so different kind of services, different architectures may fit better than to another project. So you may need to think, are you using the proper services that you have? Do you have the proper auto-scaling? One of the good examples about adopting a consumption model is that more likely your development teams just working in the same time zone, probably the same office, and they work pretty expected from Monday to Friday, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is pretty predictable. So why don't you waste your infrastructure expenses at weekends and at night during the work days? So this way, if you just run development and staging environments only for like 8 or 9 hours per day, 5 days per week, you could save like up to 75% of your development environment expenses, which is a really good opportunity. So the next design principle is measure overall efficiency. So that means that you should always know and see the metrics that you have, how your services going, what are the metrics, what are the expenses, what are the trends of those expenses, so you can then in future plan and attribute to the teams. And the last design principles is analyze and attribute expenditure. It is about tagging our resources, knowing that who is responsible for what kind of services, for what kind of teams. If you have multiple teams, you should know what each team owning and what they are like expanding, so that you can later on analyze and identify, for example, and measure overall efficiency of each team. So this is what cost optimization pillar of well-architected review tries to discover and identify how you follow different aspects of all these 4 design principles. So let's now talk about the best practices which cost optimization pillar helps you to implement. And it would be fun, but the most important one is a practice cloud financial management, because it is probably the most important thing. As I said, cloud financial management, or like CFM for short, it is really, really big topic, but the whole idea is about like four pillars, 4 principles. And the first principle is you should be able to see. You must measure your expenses. You must see what account, like what environment, what teams of your project using all resources, what are their expenses, so you can then measure KPIs and then do something with that. The next pillar is a safe, which means if you really use all the opportunities, if you use all the levers that you have to really cut your cloud costs. For example, if your development or architecture teams knows that their architecture that they developed is really the most cost-effective out of anything else, do they really select the most cost-effective services? Or maybe there's another one. You should always know if you're using the best tools for your project. This third one is about plan, about your ability to see in the future. There is a good saying that if you fail to plan, you're actually planning the failure. And I think that's what it is. If you cannot see in the future, everything would be unpredictable for you. You will have a lot of surprises, and I think it would be a bad surprises. So you should always set the budgets, set the limits, set the boundaries for your teams, so they work within those boundaries and know that they should not exceed. So they, because whenever you exceed your budgets, probably team come to you and say, hey, we need extra money. And so the budgets are really crucial. And what I also think that those boundaries about budgeting the team helps them to be like creative. Yeah, those boundaries helps them to maybe sometimes think of new architectures, of new services that can provide the same level of service, but for the lower price. And the last one is a run pillar, which actually about implementing all those previous pillars. How you manage, does you have communication between different teams? Do you know all the operations? Do you invest into the education of all the personnel? Do they know about cloud financial management? Do they know all the operations that should happen to make everything run smoothly? So this is about cloud financial management. This is a very brief overview, but I suggest you to dive deep into this topic as well, because there's a lot of things that you can implement. So the next best practice, which cost optimization pillar suggests you to do, is use cost-effective resources. Imagine you just go into a bar with your friends. Yeah, probably you would drink some alcohol. So more likely you would not want to take your own car, because you would need to think where to park your car. You would have to pay for parking lot as well. Then you would probably will need to find some driver which will get back to you. So there's a lot of management overhead if you just want to bring something yours. So it is easier just to use something on demand, like a taxi, which saves you. It is cost effective for like one-time road trips. But for example, if you just go for a work every 5 days per week, it wouldn't be that cost effective. Yeah, you would like to have your own car. And AWS also have a wide range of services and tools which you can use depending on your needs. It is either like some on-demand things, or if you need some performance, a very, very small but performance thing which will carry all the things, you run on that. Or maybe you need something very, very like very performant big, like a muscle car or a tow truck, just to run something. So you need to carefully analyze and identify what services you select, because they also affect much your budget. Next best practice is to make expenditure and usage awareness. This is going back to our 4 pillars of cloud financial management about seeing. You should see how each team spends their budget, how they go in through the timeline, for example, in a year. And AWS has a lot of tools for that, but most probably a simple one is Cost Explorer, where you have different kinds of metrics, how you can differentiate the metrics. You can, on this screen, we may see that Cost Explorer shows usage based on the account. So we have organization, it's split by account. Let's say we have a Team Blue, which had their own account. We have Team Red, and we have Team Green, and some other teams. And you may see, for example, from such a graph, when you have pretty straightforward attribution, that Team Blue, they working well through the whole year. They didn't increase their budget, but also they didn't reduce their budget. So they're just doing almost the same each month. But if we compare Team Blue with Team Red, we see that Team Red, through the whole year, they optimized their infrastructure from $500 per month probably to around $250. So it is 50% savings for Team Red. And such usage awareness helps you to find who is performing better than the others. And maybe you would then set up some kind of meeting so the Team Red can share their experience, how they achieved such a good result compared to Team Blue, and they can share their experience or maybe help the Team Blue to optimize their infrastructure as well. And the last best practice, this is probably the one of most easiest one to implement, I guess, but it gives most of the results. Usually, like, there is a company who say, like, if it works, just don't touch it, and they're afraid to touch everything. But at least you should do some review. And I suggest you, whenever like first or second date of a month comes, you just get a bill from AWS or any other cloud provider. Just set up a meeting with your development team, with your architects, if it's needed, with your finance team, and just look at the bill. Go to the, like, look at the past few months just to understand where you're going, if the finance team is satisfied with current result. Maybe we are short on budget, but development team doesn't know. So you need to make all the team members be aware, and this is part of the cloud financial management run pillar. Yeah. So you should review your bill every month with all the stakeholders who have ability to help you plan some works, because, for example, this month you didn't find any opportunity to optimize, but the next month AWS released something which is more cost effective than you use right now, and here's the opportunity. You just need to wait 1 month. So you may spend 15-30 minutes per month, but just do that, and I believe that definitely you will definitely find something for you to optimize. Like on this graph, we can see that the team, they were running some infrastructure, and through the whole, like, almost year, they optimized the expenses from almost like $3K per month to like 2.5 or 2. So this is around 40% reduction in cost. And we see that they found some opportunities in RDS. They found some opportunities in tax. Yeah, of course. The less you spend, the less is your tax. Okay, so this is about best practices, which AWS convince you to implement. And I think you can always start from optimize over time and just review your bill and maybe plan, if at least try to discover any opportunities to implement. So right now we want to talk about tools, which is pretty obvious. I think everyone knows, but I want you to pay attention again to it because, for example, because they are really useful, and the most simplest thing probably does the most benefit for your business. Same goes with easy to purchase options. I hope all of you know about that, but from my experience, what I see is that small companies and sometimes even middle companies, they are afraid of making like reservation and commitment because no one knows what would be in 1 month, in 2 months, in 1 year. Yeah, I know that is really risky, but usually the reserve instance commitments or saving plans, they have pretty flexible options to buy, so you don't have to make an upfront payment for 1 year or 3 year. You can just have a 1 year commitment. You just pay at the first of like each month for the next month. It is pretty flexible because you don't want to spend like 1 year budget. Sometimes it is very risky for the company. But this option gives you the opportunity to release extra flow into your feature development, into your functional part of your business. And that may be the option that could have saved your business but sometimes like small startups, they fail because they do not do that commitment. But this is thing to for financial team and development team to think about. Also, if you need, as I described previously, like on-demand instances, if you need just some instances to for normal operation, but without unpredictable load, but they are going with the highest cost. Yeah, and very important one is easy to spot instances. They are really up to 90%, but usually around 60-70% discount compared to on-demand instances, and they are really beautiful for the like batch job processing or some heavy processing which requires small amount of time. What I want to highlight in here as well, so when you follow the best practices of well-architected review, you may think in advance on how you plan your architecture, how you plan your infrastructure. And if you think of such of easy to purchase options before you planning your infrastructure, before deploying everything, you may already utilize easy to spot instances as part of your infrastructure. So you would have a lot of extra benefits because you are saving at least like 60% on infrastructure on EC2 instances. So the second tool, it is for those one who already make a reservation, or for those one who made a reservation or cost savings. Whoever runs EC2 instances or Fargate workloads or like Lambda functions, you want to know like if you're utilizing all the 100% of money that you spend on that. Like on this graph, you may see that we were spending like for 100% our reserved instances, we were utilizing them, everything's fine. But the last days, we were not utilizing everything, and this is really when we were burning our budget because we already paid for them, but we did not utilize them for the full performance. So this is the thing about like visibility, about C pillar of cloud financial management. You should always use all the services tools like utilization report or like CloudWatch metrics to understand where you're burning your budget or where you're using the best fit services and results. The next one tool, which I suggest, this is really useful when you have a lot of sandbox environments or developers who want to experiment. It may not save you a ton of money, but anyway, if you have organizational structure, which have like where you create dynamically accounts for your developers, that could be a really good option because AWS provides pretty good free tiers I actually used to have some small project with my brother, and we were running the project with all the serverless services, and I was paying like monthly only 50 cents per month just for the like domain registration. That was the only expenses I had, and that was enough just to have some playground to show to someone, to the public internet. So yeah, actually free tier is pretty cool. And also the good thing about free tier that imagine you have organization, you have 10 accounts of free tier, so you just multiply your free tier amounts on number of accounts where you use it. So it does not like pile up on one account. Every account has its own free tier, and it is pretty useful. Just if you are really like a small project. And the next one, I really like it because it is AWS budgets, cloud budgets. It is useful, and I suggest you whenever you start a project, just whenever you even entered your billing details, go to console and just set the budget. If you're not going to provision any infrastructure, whatever, just set up a budget. They have like an option for zero budget notification. So whenever your budget reaches more than $0, you will have notifications, and you will definitely look into it and identify what's happening, even though like if you're not expecting that. Yes. Also, you can use budgets as a option to predict and set goals for your expenses. Like you may see on the screen, we had our budget first around some price, then we increased it because our average was much higher. And then we started to think of optimizing our infrastructure to fit into budget. And as you can see, it gradually go beyond the budget. So I think at that point, we can again decrease our budget to see those notifications. And again, it would be an like incentive to again review our expenses and find new opportunities to optimize. In addition to that, budgets, it integrated with all other AWS services. It can trigger SNS service, which is integrated with everything else. So you can build a lot of different automations, whatever you need. Maybe, I don't know. So whatever automation you want to do with help of Cloud Lambda function or step functions, that could make a lot of things. Budgets also support like a different kind of notifications if you crossed your budget, or if your budget is going to cross, and maybe some extra notifications when it reach 80% of your budget, like 70, 50, and so on and so on. So this is really useful, and I suggest you to set it up like once you just started the project, just to not have unexpected expenses at the end of the month. Okay, so this is all about tools which I want to share. These are very simple. I want it to be as simple as possible. So I hope you enjoyed it. And now we are going to review our success stories. And the first story is about a company called TradeSmarter. This is a white label trading platform, and they came to us with a problem that they had rising operational costs. What I know that they were running they were running in AWS for like at least 6 or 7 years, and they were following the idea that if it works, just don't touch it. Yeah, and that is fine. But at one day, your plan changes, and maybe you have your budget started to shrink, and you need to think and find opportunities to optimize your infrastructure. So we started to review their infrastructure. And first of all, we started with well-architected framework review. And we focused on cost optimization pillar and performance efficiency. So after we conducted well-architected framework review, we found a lot of opportunities to reduce their cloud expenses and optimize their management of infrastructure. First of all, we helped them to build cloud financial management, something like notification alerts, budget alerts, and all the tools which I already showed you previously. Also, we started to implement the real, we started to really cutting the cost. So the biggest improvement was from reserved instances. It turned out that they never didn't use them, or used them but stopped using reserved instances because of instability. And reserved instances and auto-scaling of the instances depending on the demand gave us around 25% of the whole annual budget savings. It is a really big improvement, and they were really happy with that. And also we started to identify other opportunities to save. And the following issue about data retention is very popular with companies which it works, just don't touch it, and who runs workloads for a long time. We found the opportunities to optimize their data retention policies, which helped us to reduce their monthly expenses as well. And it was around 5% of annual budget. So after applying all the recommendations that we had, TradeSmarter achieved around 30% annual reduction in cloud costs. And I think that was pretty good example how just going through well-architected framework, which helps you to highlight what best practices you're following, what best practices you are not following, and helps you to find the opportunities for optimization and improvement of your project. Okay, so next success story was about the idea that newer is better. Unfortunately, it is not all the case, but at that time it was the case. So just as a background, the customer has a CPU intensive workloads which were running in a cluster of around 80 node cluster. It was running on some kind of outdated one, which were M5A instance type. When we joined the project, we conducted well-architected framework review just to identify, again, the opportunities for optimization across all the pillars. And we, as part of cloud financial management, we were aware that at some point of time, our reservation for the instances, which were part of the cluster, will go into an end. And we started to look for any opportunities to reduce expenses. We first looked at the other services, but decided that it is better just to look into different instance types. You may see on the graph on the right side that we started to compare the same instance type, just of different generation, like M5A, M6A, and M7A. As you see, newer is better is good if it's something not that newer, yes. So as on used market, the newest type was the most expensive one, but provided the highest clock speed. But the previous generation, which was M6A, it was the same of the price, but almost 30% or 40 higher on sustained clock speed of the CPU processor, which was critical for our workloads. So that was the hit that we found the great opportunity. We configured the cluster of the same size, but turned out that we didn't need that much of servers. So after the comparison and identification of the sizes, we end up with 57 node of M6A type cluster compared to 80 servers of M5A. So in the plain numbers, it is around 30% reduction, so which is great, knowing that the price is the same. But since the M5 is a little bit older, the reserve price is a little bit lower than for M6A. So the plain result was 25% of annual savings for the project just from upgrading from M5A to M6A. It wasn't that complex upgrade, but as you can see, when you always look and seek for any opportunities, you will eventually find them, and that was the case for this project. And the last very interesting story, in my opinion, It is how proper financial management can help you prevent different kinds of attacks. Yeah. So just as a background, this is a project, a UK-based project, which had a mobile application, and mobile application was available only for the UK. The authorization into application was passwordless, meaning that you just enter your phone number and you receive SMS message with one-time code. It was also used for registration and like authorization, yeah, and some verification. We used Cognito as a user database and SNS integration for sending SMS messages to a client. The way it works that when you want to send messages, you just write a message to AWS support, describe your case. They check it. You also tell like if you're using for transactional or promotional SMS messages and so on. And you set expectation, like hard limit, how much you would like to spend with that. Now, once you get this respond, it usually like within 24 hours, sometimes it can take even more, but you get the hard limit of we had at that time $1,000 hard limit. And then you may set up your own soft limit, which you can increase and change whenever you need. But once you hit the hard limit, you have to again contact AWS support and wait up to 24 hours. So we had proper cloud financial management. So we have proper auto scaling of that soft limit of SMS spending. And we had notification set up to our notification channel. I remember that I was sitting and received the notification that our SMS limit was increased for $100. It was a little bit unexpected, but should be fine because usually we used to have like $90, $80 per month expenses, which was fine. When I was checking if we had any like campaigns, any new users to sign up, I had another one, so we had increased from 100 limit to 300, and it was already like very, very weird thing. I started to check in logs and identified that we had a lot of SMS sent to numbers from Central Asia, but our application was working only in UK. And I think you should know that sending SMS messages to UK or US, for example, much cheaper. It's sometimes like 20 or 30 times cheaper. In US, you send SMS for 1 cent. And for example, in some Central Asia countries, it could cost you like 40 or 50 cents per single SMS. So when I just look into metrics, I identified that we have denial of budget attack. This is kind of attack when attacker knows that he's burning your budget. Say with SMS, you just can trigger thousands of SMS and burn your budget. This way, attacker reduce your budget for the next month. So for example, if you don't have any limits at all, it can burn your budget completely, maybe for a few months in the future, and you would not be able to run your business at all. And this is really, really crucial attacks. So we are this way we identify the origin of attack and identify this time, and because the notification was really reactive, we identified that the issue was with our like code base, which did not whitelisted countries for SMS sending. It just allowed everything. So it gives us time to implement a bug fix, which we deployed, and that way we reduce the effect of the attack. We didn't hit the hard limit. So for you curious if we would hit that limit and if we did not have those notifications, probably our system would not be available maybe for more than 24 hours because we would have to file a support ticket, wait for response, wait for limit increase. And that during that time, none of users could be able to log in, sign up, and so on. Only those who have logged into application would be able to use that platform. So this is how really proper financial management can trigger you, notify you about different kind of attack. It could be another source of like security. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you all. Eric, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Max. I found it interesting, the different cluster sizes and how the M6A was the sweet spot. That yes, the M7A was faster, but the cost proportionately was so much more that they talk about leading edge versus bleeding edge, and knowing the right one to pick was very interesting. We'll go ahead and we'll dive into some of the questions we have here that came in. You mentioned using the well-architected framework like a checklist. How often should we actually go through it, especially with how fast things change in the cloud?
Well, as a checklist, you may come back to it like whenever you think that maybe you are lost, or maybe you need to identify a better way where you should go. So actually, whenever you need to make some really important decision, you can go back to the checklist, identify where you are right now, if you're following these best practices or that, or maybe you have changed your change your change your direction. So I would suggest maybe at least once a quarter. I think that's good enough range of time where everything could change a lot for small and for big companies as well. So yeah, I think at least quarter. For big companies who doesn't have a big changes at all, probably maybe once half a year. If the company can be split into small teams, which has rapid development, yeah, the small teams can have their own well-architected review, which will represent their own like sub-project, and they can do it much often. Also, don't forget that you can go through a well-architected review, mark some checks in this review. 1 month, you found out some opportunities, some issues that you have remediated them, then just go back in a few months when you remediated them, mark them again, and then you will see that, okay, I remediated like 5 out of 10 issues, but I have 5 to go. But maybe out of those 5 left, I have like 3 is not a case for me anymore because infrastructure changed. So yeah, probably at least once every 3 months.
And that certainly makes sense as your applications evolve, to have vision there for areas that spending a lot of money, and maybe there's a way to re-architect planning with other changes. Yeah,
it's like a navigator. Whenever you just missed your cross, it will just reroute you and analyze where, okay, now we missed something, but right now completely different situation, and we maybe need to act differently.
Yeah, staying with that car analogy. Yep. So the next one that came in, we've never really tracked cloud spend in detail before. What's a good starting point for getting into cloud financial management?
Well, I already mentioned that. So at least start from the budgets, set in budgets. It is really important so you don't have unexpected results. Yes, no one wants to have a really, really big bill at the beginning of the month. It makes you really feel bad. So start from the budgets, then start to identify how much resources you have. If there is a lot, okay, maybe you should postpone that. But go into like the bill, identify what the services are most expensive ones. Then maybe you should tag them, identify who owns each like resource or service. Maybe you need to implement organizational structure to easily identify where like development environment expenses go and where staging environment, because it's easier to have just set up separate accounts rather than tagging all the resources depending on their needs. And then go to CloudWatch, start looking into metrics that are available for you, and maybe build some graphs for yourself, which will be useful for your specific case.
Yeah, and it's neat also to look at just how granular you can go on those graphs. Everything that we saw today was per month, but you can get much more granular and take a look at the trajectories and plan accordingly. Let's see. The next one here. What do you do when teams keep over provisioning resources just in case? Is this more about the tools or changing the mindset?
Well, I think it depends on the architecture. And yeah, actually, if you're running some kind of EC2 instances, you don't want to have your utilization at like 95, 90%, because you risk to throttle your requests, and it would affect the responses for your clients, and it will have much better experience. But you would not want to, so you always want to have a room. But that means also that your teams probably doesn't use the serverless services, which can scale on demand. So probably you would just need to talk to them and identify, is it just in case, or you should maybe transform your infrastructure. You need also to go back to like look at trajectory of your usage. You just look into 1 year of resource usage. If there is no spikes, probably you can adjust the limits and maybe resize your instances.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This one came in about the SMS attack example. Are there any built-in AWS tools now that can prevent this kind of thing out of the box?
Yeah, well, during that time, we actually didn't have such tools. As I said, we used Cognito, and AWS probably 1 year after or 1.5 years after, they introduced web application firewall integration. But by that time, the Cognito endpoint was exposed just for the internet. And this is actually when time when service you are paying for doesn't like meet your expectations. But fortunately, AWS noticed such a problem, and they implemented the integration with a web application firewall. So now you can throttle request, identify where requests coming from. It can help you to like whitelist countries from which requests may come from. It may identify potential like SQL injection attacks or any kind of WASP-10 types of attacks. Yeah, so right now they're much better. AWS evolve, for different services evolve. So yeah, this is again one more thing. Why should you always review the new opportunities to implement? Because right now, like you can offload all this like throttling logic and processing, identifying if it is a bad attacker to AWS rather than to implement logic yourself and also paying for processing of that yourself, which is also an opportunity to save some cost expenses.
Not to mention you're gaining from that large pool of intelligence that AWS has with another companies being attacked in another part of the world. There's that intelligence of, these IP addresses are currently bad actors, and everybody benefits from that knowledge. So I guess the last question that came in here, do you approach the well-architected framework review principles differently for startups versus big enterprises, or is the mindset basically the same? Well,
I can tell that this is a general best practices. So it is useful for as well as for big enterprises, as well as for startups. The only difference is that enterprises has much complex thing, and they are much slower into implementing and changing their infrastructure. But anyway, everyone has its own pace. As I told, like for small projects, you can just do reviews every few months, every quarter, and that would be enough. For big enterprises, it could be once a year or once half a year, because their pace is not that big as startups, and they cannot remediate the issues that well-architected review help to uncover that fast as startups.
Yeah, it certainly is wonderful, the impact of being able to provision in the cloud compared to going into a data center at 1 a.m. to rack another server and get more capacity there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everyone.
Yeah,
please, Max.
Yeah, I want to tell that probably for enterprises, this is, again, useful if you have multiple teams. Just move the well-architected review to the team level size so they can align their development with well-architected framework review. So they will do it much often on the team level size. Maybe you have some, I don't know, startups within your enterprise, yes, some side projects, and they should follow, use that well-architected framework review much often.
That makes a lot of sense. Max, we really appreciate your experience and expertise here. I want to thank you all for joining our session on how to master AWS cloud cost efficiency with the well-architected framework. If you're ready to uncover hidden savings or strengthen your AWS architecture, Hnoinskiy can help. As an advanced AWS partner, we deliver well-architected reviews, cost optimization roadmaps, and hands-on DevOps support that turn cloud overspend into lasting value. Let's connect, reach out, and let's build a leaner, more resilient